The arena of power. The crowd was loud. Too loud. Thousands of alien voices screamed from every corner of the arena. The sound echoed through stone walls and steel beams, shaking the air like thunder. Soldiers stood on the edge of every stair, holding rifles and banners marked with fire symbols. In the middle of it all stood one human, calm, alone, unarmed. Commander Jalen didn't flinch. He didn't move. He just looked straight ahead, eyes steady. Across from him stood Lady Tishara, an alien noblewoman dressed in sharp armor and long crimson robes. Her black eyes glittered like cold glass. Her voice echoed across the arena, strong and full of pride. "Why aren't you trembling, human? One word from me, and my pet will devour you." The crowd went wild. They wanted blood. They wanted fear. But Jalen only blinked once, and then gave a small, quiet smile. From the shadows behind Tishara, something moved. Slow, heavy, powerful. Korath. The beast stepped forward, massive, muscle-bound, and terrifying. Its claws scraped against the stone. Its eyes glowed red. Its jaws dripped with steam. Part panther, part dragon, part nightmare. The audience fell silent. Even the air seemed afraid. But Jalen, he didn't take a single step back. Korath growled. Loud, deep, the kind of sound that made most men fall to their knees. Jalen kept standing. Then slowly, very slowly, he lowered himself to one knee. Not in fear, in respect. Tishara raised her hand. Her voice was cold. "Korath, tear him apart." Nothing happened. The beast looked at her, then looked back at Jalen, and tilted its head, confused, watching, waiting. A whisper ran through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Something was wrong. Jalen took something from his coat pocket, a small round cube. It glowed softly in his hand. He held it out, not to Tishara, but to the beast. It's meat, not poisoned, just food. Korath sniffed the air, growled again. Tishara snapped, "Do not accept anything from him." The beast looked at her again, and sat down. Gasps echoed across the arena. Tishara stepped forward, her fists tight. "What have you done to him?" "Nothing," Jalen said quietly. "I spoke with respect. Maybe he noticed no one else ever does." Tishara's face twisted with anger. Korath was born from war. He has torn men in half, burned tanks, bit through steel. He obeys no one except me. Jalen stood slowly. And yet, here I am. The beast slowly walked closer. One step, then another. Tishara shouted, "Stop!" But Korath didn't stop. He walked all the way to Jalen and sat at his side. The arena was silent. For the first time in its long, violent history, there was no cheering, only the sound of one beast breathing, and the quiet strength of a human who wasn't afraid. Tishara's voice cracked. "This is a trick, human technology, mind control." Jalen shook his head. "No tech, no tricks, just truth. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He's tired." He looked at the beast. "Aren't you, big guy?" Korath let out a low, soft rumble, almost like a sigh. High above the arena, hidden behind dark windows, alien council members whispered, "If the beast is no longer loyal to her, she's not untouchable anymore. She's losing control. She's losing the people." Down in the pit, Tishara stared at Jalen, not with hate now, with confusion, with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt. Jalen stepped forward, hand on Korath's head. "He's not your weapon, not anymore." "You don't understand," she said. "Then explain it," he replied. Her voice was softer now. "I was raised in a world where fear kept you alive. I never had a choice." Jalen nodded. "Maybe it's time to have one now." Korath looked up at her, then down at his own chains. Long, heavy ones made of silver and stone. He raised one paw and smashed them. The sound of the chains breaking echoed like thunder. And in that moment, everything changed. Fear has no effect. The arena. Floor was cracked where the chains had shattered. Korath stood tall, free for the first time in years. The heavy silver cuffs lay in pieces around his paws, smoking slightly in the dust. The alien crowd still hadn't moved. Not a single cheer, not a single breath. High above, alien leaders whispered behind shaded glass, and below, Lady Tishara froze. For the first time. Her voice didn't work. "Kill him," she whispered. No one heard. So she tried again, louder. "Korath, obey me. Attack the human." The beast turned his head slowly. He blinked and sat down next to Jalen. Gasps exploded through the arena, not from fear but from disbelief. Tishara's fists clenched at her sides. Her red cape trembled in the breeze. "He's mine. He's linked to me. Genetically bound, his heartbeat follows my will." Jalen gently placed a hand on Korath's back. The beast didn't flinch. He leaned into it. "He doesn't want to fight," Jalen said softly. Because for the first time, someone saw him. Tishara's breath caught. "You're lying." "Then prove me wrong. Tell him again to kill me." She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come, because something deep inside her, something hidden behind anger, pride, and power, was starting to crack. Korath stood again, not to attack, but to step in front of Jalen, to protect him from her. Tishara stumbled back. "No, this isn't possible." The crowd, once so loyal, began to murmur. Is he choosing the human? Has she lost her grip? She promised us strength, but strength doesn't fear peace. Jalen stepped forward, voice still calm. Fear kept your people in line, but it doesn't work anymore. Tishara's eyes flared. "Do you think calm words and soft hands will save you from war?" "I think it already did," he said. Korath growled, not at her, but at the elite soldiers stepping onto the field behind her. She hadn't called them, the council had, to remove her. One of the armored warriors stepped forward. "Lady Tishara, by order of the council, your authority is under review. Step down." She turned to them slowly, her face once proud, now unreadable. "I gave you loyalty," she said. "I gave you control." The soldier didn't respond. Korath took one step toward them. The guard stepped back immediately. Jalen placed a hand on the beast's shoulder. "Easy. Let them decide what they really want." Tishara looked at Jalen, truly seeing him for the first time. "You didn't come here to destroy me, did you?" "No," he replied. "I came to stop the cycle." She looked down at her open palm. For so long it had only held commands. And now, it shook. A beast's decision. The arena was silent, but the storm had only just begun. Far above the broken chains and quiet crowd, the High Council chamber glowed with cold light. Massive alien leaders, each wrapped in flowing robes and guarded by honor-bound soldiers, watched a replay of the scene. Korath, once the most feared creature in the Empire, had defied his command. Worse, he chose a human. "This is a security threat," one counselor hissed. "An emotional failure," said another. "A crack in our foundation." But the oldest counselor, a pale-skinned alien with blue-tinted eyes, said only, "No, it's an awakening." Below, in a quiet chamber beneath the arena, Lady Tishara sat alone. No guards, no crown, no armor, just silence, and the sound of distant wind. Across from her sat Jalen and Korath, who lay stretched out, peacefully resting his massive head on his paws. Tishara stared at the beast. "He should hate me," she said softly. "He doesn't," Jalen replied. "He waited for you to see it." She looked up. Her eyes weren't angry anymore, they were tired. "I trained him to obey. I trained him to fear me so no one else would." She touched her wrist. Where once a control ring had been, now it was bare. When I was a child, she continued, they told me fear would protect me, that Korath was mine because I earned power. Jalen leaned forward. But he was never yours. No, she whispered. I was his. Korath lifted his head slowly, blinking at her. Then he stood, walked toward her, and sat down beside her, not like a weapon, but like a friend waiting for her to speak. She looked into his eyes and saw no hatred, only trust, and something else. Forgiveness. The door burst open. 2 elite guards entered, weapons drawn. By council order, one said, Korath is to be taken for analysis. His genetic loyalty is compromised. Jalen stood quickly. You'll have to go through me. They hesitated, then raised their weapons. Korath growled, but not out of anger, out of warning. Tashara stood, her voice cold and strong again. No one touches him. The council overruled you, the guard said. Then let the council come down here and take him themselves. The guards lowered their weapons. They didn't dare argue. They backed away and left. As the door closed, Jalen let out a breath. You didn't have to defend him. I wasn't defending him, Tashara said. I was defending me. Jalen stepped forward. So, what now? Tashara walked toward the edge of the chamber and looked out the glass wall, where stars blinked over the horizon. I lived by fear. I ruled by force. But I saw what he did today. She turned back. He chose peace. Jalen nodded. That's more power than anything you ever ordered. She stepped closer to Korath, placed a hand on his head and whispered, You made your choice. Now I'll make mine. That night word spread across the planet. The beast had refused violence. The human had calmed a legend. And the warrior queen had stood down, not from weakness, but from understanding. The galaxy didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time it listened, because when a beast once feared by all makes a decision, the universe notices. The chains were never for him. The stars outside the window moved slowly, but Tashara's thoughts moved faster. She stood in her private chamber, arms at her sides, gaze fixed on the reflection in the glass. No armor, no crown, no fire in her voice. For the first time, she wasn't sure who she was. Behind her, Korath slept peacefully, curled like a lion in the corner of the room. Jalen sat on a bench nearby, silent, watching her. He didn't ask questions. He just waited, like the beast. I thought the chains were for him, Tashara said, voice barely above a whisper. But they were always for me. Jalen leaned forward. Tell me. She shook her head slowly. I was raised in a hall of mirrors, every face smiling with fear, every hand holding a knife. I learned to command before I learned to feel. I was praised for cruelty, feared for silence. She turned toward him. I was told, make them obey, or be replaced. She walked to a small locked cabinet and opened it. Inside was her original control band, a glowing ring she hadn't worn. Since the arena, she stared at it. It wasn't a symbol of power, she said. It was a collar, just invisible. Jalen stood and came beside her. You wore it longer than he did. She looked up at him. I thought I had tamed a beast, but I was the one trained to bite when ordered. Korath lifted his head, watching her. He rose slowly and walked to her side, not because he had to, because he chose to. He leaned his heavy head against her arm. She closed her eyes and whispered, I'm sorry. The beast didn't growl, didn't move. He just stayed there, silent, present, loyal. A knock sounded at the door. An assistant entered nervously. My lady, the council has summoned you. They demand you return to the capital and explain your failure. Tashara looked at Jalen. They want me to kneel. Jalen nodded. Or to crush you before you rise again. She looked down at the ring in her hand. Then slowly, she dropped it to the floor. It clinked once and rolled to a stop at Korath's feet. I won't wear that again, she said. If They want a warlord, they can keep the title. She turned toward the window. What I want is to lead, but not from fear, Jalen smiled. That's the real beginning. Hours later, a message left the palace tower, a simple broadcast sent across the system. Lady Tishara, once feared and untouchable, now stood beside a human and a beast, and said only one thing. The leash has been broken. You may fear what we become next, but this time, we choose for ourselves. And all across the empire, in secret rooms and silent halls, people watched, and for the first time in generations, they hoped. She tried to break him. The stars were no longer silent. They whispered warnings, and Tishara was listening. For 3 days, peace had held. No threats, no orders, no war cries, but she knew calm didn't mean safety. It meant someone was planning, and she was right. Late into the evening, Tishara sat in the Hall of Echoes, a circular chamber where her ancestors once judged, ruled, and executed. Beside her stood Jalen, hands behind his back. And near the wall, quiet and alert, rested Korath, eyes open and watching. The room was quiet until the doors opened. A familiar figure entered, Advisor Relin, her former right hand, her strategist, the one who had helped build her rise. He bowed slightly. My lady, he said with a false smile, you are needed in the northern tower. The council requests a private hearing. Tishara narrowed her eyes. Why wasn't I informed earlier? He smiled wider. It's a surprise visit, Korath growled. Just once. Jalen's eyes sharpened. He smells something. Tishara stood tall. Where does this path lead, Relin? To the future, he replied calmly. Without beasts. Without fear. Without weakness. Suddenly the chamber lights flickered. Doors sealed. And from the shadows troops emerged, dozens of soldiers, faces hidden, weapons drawn. Korath stood instantly, placing himself between Tishara and the soldiers. Relin's smile dropped. You could have ruled forever, he said. But instead, you knelt beside your pet, and now your pet will watch you die. Tishara stepped forward, not with fear, but with rage. You betrayed the code, the people, me. Relin snapped his fingers. Fire. Shots rang out, but Korath leapt before the first blast reached her. His roar drowned everything else. He knocked back 2 soldiers, his claws slashing armor like paper. Tishara drew her blade, not out of habit, but for something she never fought for before. Not power, not position, but for loyalty, for truth, for him. Jalen moved with precision, disarming one soldier and shielding Korath's flank. Together they fought as one unit, beast, human, warrior. The enemy didn't stand a chance. The battle ended in Under 3 minutes, smoke hung in the air. Relin crawled backward, blood on his lip. You gave up your throne for a creature, he spat. Tishara walked toward him slowly. No, she said. I gave up my chains. She pointed her blade at his throat. Leave. And take the old fear with you. He vanished into the shadows. Later, when the floor had been cleaned and the weapons removed, Tishara sat beside Korath, who bled slightly from his shoulder. You saved me again, she whispered. Korath licked her hand. She looked up at Jalen. Tell me something. What? If I had chosen power instead of him that day in the arena, what would you have done? Jalen smiled gently. I wouldn't have had to do anything. He would have shown you the truth. She looked at Korath again. This time, with full understanding. I tried to break him once, but it was me who needed to be broken, to finally become free. The command she couldn't give. The war drums were silent now, but the court was not. Tishara stood inside the great hall of blades, the final place of judgment in her people's empire. Its high black walls were carved with the names of those who ruled by command, and died by it too. Behind her stood Jalen, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Beside her, as always, was Korath, wounded, healing, but proud, and across the room, the High Council waited. They were not seated. They stood in a half-circle around her, hooded, cloaked, cold. "We've come to give you one last chance," said the lead elder. "Prove you're still fit to lead." She didn't blink. "And what is your test?" The elder turned. A prisoner was dragged into the center of the room, bloodied, broken. It was Relan, her old advisor, the traitor. He had betrayed her, tried to kill her, tried to destroy everything she rebuilt, and yet, her fists didn't tighten, her heart didn't race, she only felt. Still, the elder pointed a finger toward Korath. "Order the beast to kill him. Show us you still carry the will to rule." Tashara stared at the man who once stood at her right side. She turned to Korath. He looked up at her, waiting. Ready, but calm. And in his golden eyes, she saw the same question. Will you choose power again, or peace? Her lips parted. She tried to speak, to say the words she had spoken 1,000 times before. Korath, execute. But this time, nothing came out. The silence grew louder. One counselor leaned forward. Say it. Tashara's eyes began to burn, not from anger, but from shame, and something else, growth. She lowered her hand and turned her back on the circle. No, gasps. Outrage. A weapon fired in the corner. Korath stepped forward and shielded her body with his own. Coward, one elder hissed. Traitor, another whispered. Broken. But Jalen stepped forward and raised his voice, not loud, but sharp. She's not broken, she's healed. And you fear that more than any war beast ever created. Tashara turned around. I won't kill to keep my seat. If you want a leader soaked in blood, go find another. She pointed to the door. But if you want a leader, who chooses strength through choice, not fear, then stand with me. For a moment, no one moved. Then one guard stepped forward and dropped his weapon, then another and another, until half the court stood unarmed. And at peace. The lead elder sneered. You gave up your place for an animal. Tashara looked at Korath, then Jalen, then herself, and smiled. No, I found it, because of one. Korath stepped beside her and let out a quiet growl, not of rage, but of approval. Why aren't you trembling? The storm passed, not the kind that rained fire from the sky, the kind that lived inside her. Days had passed since the judgment. Tashara now walked freely, not as a feared warlord, but as something more rare, a leader with no blood on her boots. Peace negotiations between human and alien worlds had begun, and in the capital square of the Empire's core city, a final ceremony was held, broadcast across the stars. Thousands gathered to witness it, alien and human alike. Tashara stood at the center of a stone platform. Jalen stood beside her. Korath lay near her feet, still proud, still loyal. Across from them stood a human military general, stern, skeptical, and surrounded by guards. He stepped forward, raised his chin, and said with a sneer, We were told your beast destroyed fleets, burned down cities, made warriors tremble. But now, he bows beside a human. Tashara didn't blink. She stepped forward, calm as still water, and softly replied, Why aren't you trembling? The general's face twitched. The crowd grew silent. Even the breeze seemed to pause. Tashara continued, You fear monsters because you don't understand them. But Korath feared nothing, not even me. He chose peace not because he was weak, but because he was free. She turned to Korath. The beast rose slowly, walked past the guards, and sat directly in front of the general. No growl, no threat, just presence. The general couldn't hold his stare. He looked away first. The crowd erupted. Not with cheers, but with quiet respect. A new kind of silence, one filled with change. Later that night, beneath soft alien moons, Tishara and Jalen sat alone in the garden of her palace. Korath lay between them. Tishara rested her hand on the beast's head and said softly, "I once asked you to kill, with a single word. Now all I ask is that you continue showing us how to live." Jalen looked at her with a soft smile. "You've come far," she smiled back. "So have we." Somewhere in the city, a child watched the ceremony replay. She tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Was the beast scary?" The mother replied, "Only to those who couldn't see his heart." And across the stars the legend grew, not of a warlord, not of a weapon, but of a woman, a human and a beast, who chose not to command fear, but to end it. The end, a human didn't tremble, a beast didn't obey, and a queen chose peace when the universe expected war.